Hi, this is Brian Venton here with another My Town Media opinion piece that I've called A Warning to Every Mayor in Queensland. The title is blunt for a reason, because what has happened in Townsville should terrify every public official in the state. Every mayor, councillor, CEO and public officer in Queensland should take note. A 12-month corruption investigation found no crime, yet it still destroyed a career. No charges were laid, no threshold of corrupt conduct was met, no prosecutorial case to answer for, nil, zero. And if a watchdog can do that without proving corruption, then no one in local government is safe. Townsville wasn't a local drama. It's now a statewide alarm bell. The CCC released its public report into former Townsville Mayor Troy Thompson on the 25th of November. Inside, no criminal findings, no recommended charges, no suggestion that any behaviour met the high legal threshold for corruption under the Crime and Corruption Act. Yet the process itself, not the evidence, delivered the punishment. Guilty in the court of public opinion. Personal privacy was breached, a reputation was shredded, and a career demolished. And all while sections of the mainstream media piled on, feeding the narrative that branded Thompson a pathological liar and the king of con. Narratives that bear little resemblance to what I see as glaring deficiencies within this report. So let me break down 4 structural problems in this report that every public officer should be deeply concerned about. First, the threshold of criminality was never established, but the process rolled on anyway. Under the Act, to be corrupt, conduct must adversely affect the public body or undermine public confidence. But most importantly, it has to be capable of being proven as a criminal offence or be grounds for dismissal. That threshold was never met. The CCC's own report confirms it. So the obvious question needs answering. If the threshold wasn't met, why didn't the CCC shut the investigation down? Because if a corruption probe can proceed without meeting the legal test for corruption, the mechanism becomes the punishment, and that mechanism can now be used on anyone, mayor, councillor, CEO, or a public servant. This decision sets a dangerous precedent that should make every public officer very uneasy. Second, the black box of 32 discrete complaints. The report refers to these 32 discrete complaints, yet provides no public detail about whether any of them actually met the threshold of corrupt conduct. Normally, the CCC dismisses weak or unprovable complaints quickly. That's their usual practice. So why didn't they do that here? Or were they searching for evidence to match a conclusion? The evidence suggests the latter, as the watchdog went on a fact-checking rampage through 6.85 million electronic records. And now Queenslanders are being asked to trust the CCC's classification of those complaints without seeing the substance, the wording, or the alleged wrongdoing. But it's that very substance that determines everything. Whether the investigation expanded or whether it continued, whether a public report was even justified, and ultimately whether a mayor's career was destroyed. Now, what happens if the next 32 complaints are about you? Will you be shown the substance? Will the public? Will the CCC apply the same secretive process? No journalist or member of the public should blindly accept a list of complaints or the CCC's private interpretation of them. In fact, I would not be surprised if, when forensically examined, the complaints showed distinct similarities, perhaps even evidence of being coordinated. Every public officer in Queensland should demand transparency on this point. Third, the breach of privacy. A warning to every public servant. The CCC released parts of Thompson's medical history, information irrelevant to any criminal allegation. Yet the CCC can access certain records in certain circumstances, but publishing them? That crosses a line. Releasing someone's private medical information in a report that leads to no criminal findings may itself breach national privacy laws, and it could arguably amount to misfeasance in public office. Thompson may well seek redress for that and the slanderous use of that material against him by mainstream media. But the bigger issue is this. If it can happen to him, it can happen to any public officer who finds themselves on the wrong side of an internal feud, a political rivalry or bureaucratic agenda. No one should feel safe if their private medical history can become public simply because an investigation needs content. Then 4, a dangerous statewide precedent. The most troubling part of this entire saga is not what the CCC found, it's what the CCC didn't find. It's what mainstream media failed to report and what evidence was relied upon for a show cause notice being issued in the first place by both the ALP and then the LNP. If a mayor can be removed through a year-long integrity review dressed up as a corruption probe, then the line between independent oversight and political pressure is now blurred beyond recognition. And this is no longer a Townsville issue. This is a Queensland governance crisis. Oversight bodies must operate strictly within legislative boundaries. And once those boundaries bend or worse become weapons, every public officer becomes vulnerable to perception rather than evidence, timing rather than fairness, and narrative rather than truth. Townsville was the warning shot. The next target could be anywhere. For the integrity of the system and the protection of those who serve it, this precedent cannot be ignored. It is dangerous, it is morally wrong, and it is wide open for political manipulation and abuse. And as I've said before, if this is what passes for corruption in Queensland, every mayor in the state should sleep with one eye open. Thanks for watching, and remember, the things that appear are not always as they seem. Bye.